You're listening to the Investor Success Podcast, the hit weekly show featuring inspirational stories to help real estate entrepreneurs do more deals while increasing cash flow and net worth. My name is Jim Ingersoll, and I'm your host for the podcast. I'm also the founder of the Investor Success Mastermind. You can learn more about our mastermind community at www.investorsuccessmastermind.com. I created this podcast to motivate and inspire both beginning and veteran real estate investors to go out there and take massive action and do more deals the right way. I want to welcome you to our show today. If this is your first time joining us, I want to give you a special shout out and a special welcome today as well. If you're a regular loyal success listener, welcome back to the show again. We've got a fantastic show lined up today that is just chock full of inspiring strategies and stories that you're going to absolutely love with our guest, Joe Fairless. Joe, welcome to the Investor Success Podcast today.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Looking forward to it.
Let me tell you guys a little bit about Joe because he's done some amazing things. Joe is the host of the world's longest running daily real estate podcast that you absolutely got to check out. It's the best ever, of course. It's the best ever. It's the best real estate investing advice ever. Joe's career actually began in New York City as the youngest VP of an advertising agency, and then went on to create a company that now controls over $54 million worth of real estate. Joe's best ever podcast is distinguished among real estate investors and entrepreneurs to share their advice and success stories, and I was featured recently, and I love doing it. Past interview guests, of course, also included Barbara Corcoran, Robert Kiyosaki, and it's basically a who's who of real estate investing that you're going to want to check out. His newest book, The Best Ever Real Estate Advice, is also available, and it's been personally endorsed by Barbara Corcoran. And what I love is that all the profits are being donated to Junior Achievement of Cincinnati. Joe, welcome. It's nice to have you along today.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, so you've done some amazing things, and I want to talk today about going from one door at a time to a lot of doors at a time, single-family homes to larger apartment communities. But I want to encourage my listeners to go to your website, joefairless.com, and also subscribe to your podcast because they're going to learn a lot. One of the neat things on your website is your top 10 facts. Mm-hmm. And you've done some amazing things, and I love the way you're a giver as well. I think giving's really important. But tell me a little bit how you go from being a VP of an advertising company, you've done stand-up comedy in New York City, and then transitioned into real estate.
Oh, wow. So how did I do that? Mm-hmm. Well, that is a loaded question. I'd say that basically, I'll give you the Cliff Notes. I went from the youngest VP of a New York City advertising agency, and by the way, I started as a junior project manager making less than minimum wage in New York City. I wasn't digging it after I climbed the corporate ladder relatively quickly. I was teaching on the side real estate because I was investing in single-family homes, and more of my friends were like, wait a second, you're working at an ad agency. How are you buying these single-family homes? And I told them how I was doing it, which wasn't rocket science. It was just save up some money and then go buy something that cash flows in another market that cash flows better than the market you live in, which was New York City at the time. So I was buying in Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas, where I'm from. But then I started looking at a spreadsheet that I created, and the spreadsheet had all these different homes that I'd have to purchase in order to reach my financial goals because I was making about $250 a house. I was like, this is just taking way too long. I don't know how I'm going to come up with all these down payments. It's not scalable. So I decided to look into apartment investing. And by the way, there's ways to make single-family home investing scalable. I know. I've interviewed people on my podcast. I've talked to people, and they make it work. You can buy in bulk, you know, similar to what a hedge fund does. But I didn't want to go about it that way. So I looked at apartment investing, started learning about it, And then I ended up leaving my job in advertising. Actually, I was fired because our clients, a couple of our clients, picked another advertising agency, so they laid off a bunch of people. But it turned out that it was actually the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was already planning to exit anyway, and it just pushed me out the door a little bit faster. So I was like, I'm done with advertising. I've been doing this for 8-9 years, no more. I was about 30 years old or 29 years old at the time, somewhere around something like that. So I decided to go into apartment investing, and what I realized is that when I started investing, or when I started looking at the business model, I started talking to some of my friends, and they're like, you know what? This sounds pretty neat, the single family home stuff, but this apartment stuff that you're focused on now, that sounds really interesting. So if you ever do a deal, let me know. I heard that from 2 or 3 people. And after I heard that, I was like, wait a second, do I actually have clients, i.e. investors, before I have a product? Because if I have clients or customers who will be my investors before I have a product, which would be apartment building, then I am setting myself up for success. It's the flip side when you get in trouble, where you have a product before you have customers or clients or investors. And I get a lot of people ask me, should I find the deal first and the money will follow, or should I find the money first and the deal will come? Well, you find the money first and the deal will come. Don't do it the other way around. I can tell you that's true because I've done it both ways. My first deal, I found the deal first, and then I had to go find the money, and it was a character building experience, to say the least. Whereas now I find the investors, I speak to them, I talk to them about my business, and then we get into the actual, then I go find the deal based on their investing goals.
All right, so find the money first, and then the deals will follow. So let's talk about both a little bit, if you don't mind. Do you recommend raising capital inside a fund, or how do you recommend starting to raise private capital?
I have not raised money within a fund, and I'm glad that you asked this, because I want to elaborate on this point because it will be good for the listeners. The important thing is, when I say you got to find the money first and then go get the deal, by finding the money, you need verbal commitments of, yes, I'm interested. And here's how the conversation will go from a high level. You'll send them a PowerPoint presentation of your business prior to the phone call that you have set up, or prior to the in-person meeting that you have set up. Then let's pretend it's a phone call. Then when you jump on a call, you say, looking forward to having a conversation with you. I sent over the information about what I've got going on. I'd love to learn more about you. I just want to make sure that we're structuring our time the best way. How would you like to approach this? Do you have some specific questions? Do you want me to go through it slide by slide, or you just want to kind of give you an overview? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say either I want an overview, or I just have some questions. But before you get into any of that, you've got to learn more about them. You've got to learn about their goals. You've got to learn about their background. You've got to learn about investments that have worked for them, investments that have not worked for them. You've got to know how they think about investing. What words do they use? Do they always use the word conservative? Do they always use the word aggressive? Do they always use the word protect? How are they talking about their investing? What have their experiences been? What have they heard? Are they real estate investors? Are they looking to invest passively, or are they looking to be active investors? I've had an investor. He is a CEO for a pretty large company, and he told me that he was in for $250,000 on my next deal. Well, when the private placement memorandum was finalized on it and I sent it to him, he's like, oh, I didn't realize that I didn't have control and I wasn't actively an owner in this. I thought I was going to be active. whereas all my deals, the investors are passive. And so I now screen that at the very beginning of our conversations. I'm very clear with the investors. This is a passive investment for you, not for me, but for you. So talking to them about that, learning about what they're looking for, and then jumping into either specific questions that they have or the overview of what you're doing. And then at the end, finish it by saying, and if I find something that meets your financial goals, would you like me to share it with you? And what do you think they're always going to say?
Of course.
Of course, yeah. They always say, of course, and I would too. If someone just took some time to listen to my background and what I'm looking for, and then they say, okay, based on what you just told me of these XYZ goals, if I find that, want me to share it with you? Yeah. Well, what you do is you put in a spreadsheet, and I have a spreadsheet I'd be happy to give to your listeners, and it has this outlined. Just email me info@joefairless.com. And you have the first name, the last name, the investment range, so low range, high range, and you have the network that they're a part of. And as you populate that spreadsheet with people who you've spoken to, and you put the low range of investment, you think they'll be investing in the high range, and the network, then you start tallying up the low range column. And once you get 30% more of what you think you need for your next deal, total in that low range column, then you're going to be able to go confidently to the brokers. You're going to be able to confidently speak to apartment owners that have off-market deals, and you're going to say, I can buy your apartment building. Let's talk about what makes the most sense for you, and then you can get the deal done.
That is awesome. And I think people don't always realize the huge benefit of being a passive investor in an asset like an apartment complex where you're secured with a hard asset, you're protected, everything is there, and you don't have to do anything, and it's truly mailbox money for these passive investors. And they don't have to worry about China, and they don't have to worry about Brexit and the foreclosure crisis in Italy right now, and all these other outside contributing factors. It's providing affordable housing in communities that's desperately needed in the United States. So I think that was a great point to make.
Awesome.
So let's transition that a little. Now, you started to talk about how to find the off-market apartment complexes. And what is a good marketing strategy for something like that look like?
A good marketing strategy for doing what?
Finding the deals?
Finding the deal? Well, you got two options, on-market and off-market. On-market deals are deals that brokers have. They promote to their database, and there is, you bid, and then within about 30 days, they'll ask for final and best offer. If you make that round, then you'll go into a buyer-seller call where they'll ask you a bunch of questions about how you can close, your underwriting, your partners, and then they'll ultimately try and push you to go a little bit higher on the purchase price, and then they'll make a selection. So that's an on-market deal. Okay. Marketing for that is done by connecting with brokers and having good relationships with brokers. Off-market deals. Actually, I want to mention one more thing about on-market deals with brokers, because this happened recently with a deal that we have under contract, and I'm planning on closing in about a month and a half. And that is, we have a relationship with a broker. He knows that we have equity that we are ready to invest, and he had just gotten awarded a deal to market. So he just got awarded the deal to market it to his list. Well, he went to us and he said, hey, I've got this deal. I haven't even created a marketing package. I haven't done anything with it. So what I'd like to do, since I know you can close, is I'd like to give you first crack at actually making an offer.
Awesome.
Before it hits the market. Now he still gets a fee, and he actually took a discount on his broker fee to get the deal done because he didn't have to do any work besides just make a connection.
Right.
So he's able to get a fee for making the introduction, and then we went straight from that conversation to making an LOI, it getting accepted, and then having a seller buyer call, and then we're now going to be closing here pretty soon. So that's I guess that's a hybrid approach. That this is the first time I've come across that exact structure. That just goes to show you've got to have good relationships with your brokers. Now, off-market deals, tons of ways. There's when you actually go to joefairless.com, there's a guide that's 24 ways to get off-market deals for apartment buildings, and you can get that guide. I will tell you that it all boils down to the how aggressive you are and how connected you are with the individuals in the market that you're in. So, for example, you can get deals by driving by properties, looking for distressed properties, and calling up, looking at the the county website for tax information to find the owner's information or the LLC's information, then emailing them or mailing them or calling them. You could network with carpet installers. You could network with painters, landscapers, electricians, a bunch of different vendors who are doing work at different properties, and having conversations with them and asking them, hey, do you know of any distressed properties? Do you have any properties that are slow in paying their bills? Do you know of any properties that are looking to sell? Having those conversations, because they hear the information on the back channels, and they're able to give you some good information. You can also do direct mail in the market and typical things like that. But there's also a lot of creative ways that you can go about it. And in that guide, if I had all 24 ways memorized, I would tell all 24 to you right now, but I don't. So you can get that guide and check it out.
Well, I love the tip you just gave, the tip of networking with contractors and vendors and flooring suppliers and things like that. I got invited to one locally. It's like a cookout for this huge flooring distribution company on Thursday night. So when I go, I guess I'm going to be looking for the carpet installers, the flooring installers, and the people there, and maybe they can give me some tips on what they know about apartment complexes. So thank you. I think that's a great give.
And I'd say one other thing you made me think of is create your own meetup.
Yeah.
Create your own meetup and invite apartment owners in your community to speak at the meetup. Because if they're speaking at the meetup, then you have the license to reach out to them and connect with them, and then be a thought leader in the area. And then just because you're organizing an Eventbrite page, I mean, all you got to do is create a free event through Eventbrite or Meetup.com, and then have one apartment owner in your city to go speak to people. You don't have to have any experience at all. Just go do that and have a community around apartment investing. Tell the community, hey, I'm learning just like you, and we're going to have apartment owners come speak to us about what it's like to own apartments. It's as simple as that. That's how you can get off-market deals too, and that's the type of stuff that lazy people who just think they want to do this stuff, they don't do. And that's what separates the people who actually make money and actually achieve in this business from those who just kind of think about it or read about it or kind of dabble in it but don't follow through with all the stuff that they know they should.
Okay, and that's a great tip. And I was looking through your Twitter feed earlier. We follow each other on Twitter. We both have a lot of followers. And one of the tweets I saw was from one of your guests recently, and you guys were talking about Napoleon Hill. And it said, ongoing relentless education, do something and take action, something to that regard. And I mean, I love Napoleon Hill. I'm really into self-improvement and development and stuff like that. And you've just talked about being a thought leader. You talked about the importance of relationships. How important is it to go out there and give yourself that relentless education and be prepared to take massive action as well.
Well, I think I would hope that we all know that it is imperative that we are taking a lot of action, but it's strategic action. I think we've all heard that from every other person. What I'd say is I'd like to just lead by example. I'd like to give an example of how I'm not just saying this, I'm actually doing it. I am the host of the world's longest running daily real estate podcast. Nobody in the entire world, has done a podcast on real estate investing every single day for as long as I've been doing it. That's an example of daily consistent action towards what you want to do. And I would challenge listeners who are wanting to get into the space to do something that is daily and do it consistently for a long period of time. Do it for 30 days. And then if it's a good use of your time, do it for 30 more. And then just keep on snowballing, and eventually you'll figure out a way to monetize it. And then eventually you're going to build a network and a platform that is completely scalable. And then you're going to reach a tipping point where you won't know what to do with the money that you're making. And you're going to have to come up with ways for how you are not focused as much on money, but you're going to be focused more on your time, because that ultimately is the most valuable resource that we have. It's not money, it's not anything, it's time. So create something. There's a quote that Robert Kiyosaki said, and I'm going to butcher it, but it said it was something to the effect of rich people focus on building platforms, poor people focus on building cash. And the takeaway is build a platform that you can leverage to greatly outweigh any other benefit you could create by just focusing on how am I going to make the next dollar.
Okay. That is phenomenal success advice. Let me tell you. So we've talked about being a thought leader. You talked about the value of relationships, and I love the concept of relational capital, Joe. And so you and I are resonating on the same pages here. And taking that challenge that Joe just gave all of our listeners, find something for the next 30 days of your life and commit to it, and be intentional and don't miss one single day, and invest in yourself and take some action. I think that's all great advice. Joe, have you read a good book lately?
Yeah, I have. Let's see. Which one do I want to mention? You know what? I'd say the one I'm reading right now is the biography of Alexander Hamilton. I think he's just a fascinating individual. Terrible, terrible circumstances growing up. And within a span of like 2 or 4 years, his dad left him, his mom died, the people who he was with, I think was his cousin, they died, someone else left. Him and his brother just had a terrible upbringing, but that's what helped form him to be who he ended up being, which is a founding father of our country. Now, if you're asking real estate stuff, I'd say a book by Dolph DeRose called, I think it's like 100 or 101 Ways to Increase Cash Flow. I enjoy reading books by Dolph DeRose. I also enjoy his book called Commercial Real Estate Investing.
I've read that one as well.
Great. Those are good ones.
All right, and I love the fact that you brought up the Alexander Hamilton one, because I've read all the real estate books too, but I doubt very many people have read a biography on Alexander Hamilton. And I love the way that you highlighted the hardships that he had and the way that he overcame them to find phenomenal success in really leading our country ultimately. And it's so easy to get discouraged as an entrepreneur if your first thing you try to do doesn't go well and you struggle a little. But, if it doesn't kill you, it does make you stronger. It is very true. So I'm really glad you brought that one up as well. All right. We've just about out of time here, but I really appreciate your time. Do you have any final tips on somebody who may be struggling with just overanalyzing or just so nervous and so full of fear that they can't get out there and get started?
Well, I'd say if you're so nervous and so full of fear and you can't get out there to get started, that to me means that you don't associate enough pain to not getting started. So just think about how nervous and how fearful you'll be whenever the things that you're imagining right now actually happen if you don't start doing something. So get out there, go do something towards progress of what you want to do, but do it every day for 30 days. That's the thing. Like, if there's any takeaway that you have from this conversation, I recommend that you do one thing for 30 days that is connected back towards your goal.
30-day challenge. I like it. So, and that's a great way to start. Kind of figure out where you want to go. And I love the way you said, what's going to happen if you don't do it. Make sure that you do educate yourself, but don't overanalyze. Joe, my background's engineering. So I was an electrical engineer and I have a master's in engineering. And us math and science people doing real estate had to overcome the hurdle of overanalyzing. Because I was taught to put everything into equation, control your variables, and you'll get a specific outcome. So for all the IT guys, the math and science, the medical, the engineers like myself, don't get caught in that rut of overanalyzing. You can't control everything. And if you have to think about it too much, maybe it's not a good deal anyway. So you'll find something out there. Joe, I want to tell you, I really appreciate your insight. I'm glad we were on the same page a lot on the personal development stuff. And congratulations on all of your achievements for sure. And I appreciate your sharing very much today.
Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it, and I'm grateful that we had our conversation.
All right, everybody go to joefairless.com. I highly recommend it. Grab the offer that he's got there for the 24 ways to find off-market deals. And that's it for this special episode of the Investor Success Podcast. Thanks again to all of our success listeners tuning in today. It's been really fun to spend this time with you. My name is Jim Ingersoll, and I'm not just your host for this podcast episode, but I'm also the founder of the Investor Success Mastermind, where I'm helping investors all over the country achieve success investing in real estate the right way. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends and social media contacts, and visit us online at www.bigmoneyinvestor.com.